This is a conversation with Ben, one of my dedicated students who has been on an inspiring journey of learning Polish. But this podcast is about so much more than just language. Ben shares how learning Polish is connected not only to his relationship with his Polish partner, but also to deeper reflection about culture, history, Brexit, and the future of technology. What begins as a story about language challenges quickly expands into a much bigger discussion about memory, real-life communication, political change, and the evolving world of AI. Ben opens up about learning Polish to connect better with his partner's family and why memory has been his biggest challenge. How Poland and the UK are culturally similar, yet shaped by very different histories. His honest perspective on Brexit, how it affected him, and why he voted Remain but doesn't fully support the European Union. The similarities and contrasts between living in the UK and visiting Poland, from social life to work culture, the future of programming, the job market, and how AI is already changing the tech industry. His predictions for AI education and why traditional ways of learning still matter in an AI-driven world. This is an honest and eye-opening conversation about language, culture, cultural connection, and the future we are heading toward, taught through Ben's thoughtful insights and real-world experience. My ultimate goal is to create the most engaging online Polish language course, and students like Ben continuously inspire and motivate me to make this vision a reality. But your involvement matters too. Together, let's build an extraordinary community for Polish learners worldwide. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know which topics and resources would best support you in your Polish learning journey. Thank you.
Wolność, kocham i rozumiem wolność. Oddać nie umiem wolność. Kocham i rozumiem wolności. Oddać nie umiem.
So, the first question is, why did you start learning Polish?
Because my partner is Polish.
Okay.
That's
And
an easy one.
sorry?
That was an easy one. My partner is Polish, and so she wanted me to learn Polish.
Okay.
And it also means I can have a better relationship with her parents who don't speak so much English.
Okay. So, what's been the biggest challenge in learning Polish so far?
Remembering things. I'm not very well. I don't think I'm very good at remembering things in general. So I don't have to remember a lot of things for my work. It's more based on like competency or maybe also like doing things over and over again, which are the same. So, which is sort of remembering something, but you know, if it's more that I don't have a very good ability to remember things, if I just hear them once, I need to repeat a lot of times to remember. Whereas I think some people find it easier to remember things.
Yeah. And do you think this also, like with learning Polish, also helped you just remember things in general better?
Maybe,
Practice your memory?
yeah. I think it's a good learning languages is probably quite a good thing to do as you get older, because it helps to exercise parts of your brain which maybe you stop using. Um, like I work in IT, and so there's probably parts of my brain I use every day, and I use quite a lot. But language probably is a different part of the brain. So, um, and also I think also for older people, people who are in retirement, it would be something quite good for them to do as well. I mean, I'm not in retirement. I it would be, I think about my parents. It would probably be quite a good thing for them to do. They don't do it, but they would benefit from it, I think. As
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I have a few students who are pensioners and
Mm,
they learn for the reason you're talking about. So
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
they believe it helps them, and I also think it helps. So that's true.
yeah.
And so what motivates you to keep going, to keep learning?
Mm, I mean, it's, it's probably still mainly it's because my partner wants me to do it.
Yeah,
Um, I do find it interesting in some ways. But I was never I never liked languages very much at school. Um, so when I was at school in the UK, we still had to learn. We still had to do foreign language. So this is not the case anymore. I don't think. I don't. I think they removed this requirement. So you don't have to do a foreign language now to GCSE level. But when I was at school, you did have to do one language to this level. So I did German. I mean, what did I get? I think I got a B in German. So I wasn't terrible, but I also wasn't good. I was sort of in the middle.
yeah, yeah.
It's average. But that was partly because I didn't really enjoy it very much. So I didn't try very hard. Um, yeah.
And when you compare German to Polish,
It's but it was so long ago, and also learning it in a school environment is very different. So the motivation is all very different, and yeah, it's hard to compare. I think I don't remember any. I don't think I remember any German really. I'm not
but
sure.
do you remember if it was like more difficult than learning Polish or less difficult or not really?
No, I don't. Not really, because the way you measure I guess in school you are tested, right? So you have a score, and you're assessed, and so you have a different sense of progress. Whereas, I mean, my test now is if I can say things to people when I go to Poland.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the test. So uh,
Real life test.
yeah, the real life test, yeah,
Yeah,
which in some
yeah.
ways is a better test,
Yeah, it is. I think it is.
but yeah, because the assessment then is very different in that sense. So it's hard to know, you know, if it was harder or easier. I don't know, because also the emphasis would have been quite different probably, because they test specific things and they don't care about other things. So we did have like a sort of speaking exam, but this
Yeah,
was only a part of the assessment. So that I think even most of the assessment was written. So it wasn't. most of it was not speaking. So yeah, it's quite hard to compare.
Okay.
Yes.
And what cities and places have you visited in Poland?
I've been to quite a few places. So my partner is from Sharad, which is sort of halfway between Łódź and Wrocław. So I've been to Łódź and Wrocław. I've been
Yeah.
to Krakow. Been to Warsaw.
Yeah, yeah.
Warszawie. I've been to Gdańsk. Been to some other places. Been to quite a few airports. Katowice. I've been to somewhere in the mountains that I forget the name of all the time.
Zakopane?
Not Zakopane. No, the other side, on the Czech border.
Oh,
I always forget
can't
the
remember.
name.
Can't remember either.
So yeah, I've been around Poland quite a lot actually. Yeah, I can't remember the first time I went to Poland. It was quite a long time ago. It was, I think, my early 20s maybe. I used to
Oh,
have a friend who lived there
okay.
at one point, and then yeah, so I've been quite a lot over the years. I mean, definitely more than 10 times.
Okay. And what's your favorite place in Poland?
I did like Gdansk,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, Krakow is very nice. This is it's quite historical, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Warsaw is just a big city. It's a bit more anonymous. Um, yeah, Wrocław is more of a working city, I think. It's a bit like Birmingham
Yeah.
in some ways, maybe. Or is it like Manchester? Or is it similar to Manchester and Birmingham, I think, in this respect? There's less, it has less of identity, maybe.
And what's your favorite place in the UK?
In the UK, that's a tough one. I'm not sure. I don't think I really have a favorite place. There are nice places though. There are nice places. Where my parents live is nice, even if it's a bit boring. So they live in Dorset. So there's some very nice coastline in Dorset. It's a nice place to go to visit. You have the Jurassic Coast, and they call it the Jurassic Coast because there's a lot of fossils that get washed up and exposed on the beach in West Dorset. So you can walk along the beach and pick up fossils still. And there's also they make lots of archaeological discoveries along there as well, like of bigger dinosaur bones and things like this. And then there's lots of other places along the coast which are quite interesting, like you have Swanage and Durdle Door and Abbotsbury, and all the way around to Poole Harbour, which is a very large natural harbour. So yeah, that's a very nice part of the UK where I grew up, but it is a bit dull. There's not really much going on indoors. So people tend to leave if they grow up there. They tend to leave and go somewhere else. There's lots of other nice places. So I mean, there's lots of nice places in Scotland. the Western Isles. We often go to Wales because we're not very far from Wales. There's lots of nice places in Wales. We're in the Brecon Beacons recently. Northumberland and Northumbria. This is a very nice area in the northeast as well. I think this is less well known. It's not so much of a tourist place, but it has some very nice countryside and coastline. Yeah. So it is, in parts, it's a very nice country.
Yes, it is.
You just you have to go looking for it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you like the most about Poland? Like the people, the culture, the food, or maybe something else?
I think in there's some ways in which Poland and the UK are culturally quite similar. So I think some of the attitudes are quite similar, the way people think about things. There's obviously a lot of big differences still because, Poland was under communism, and then the Soviet Union collapsed, and it's been developing very rapidly. And yeah, I mean, I think Poland and the UK have an interesting history, of course, because a lot of Polish people came here in the war and fought alongside the Allies. That we had Polish military units which were established under the command of the British Army and under the Air Force. So there's always been this sort of a lot of connections between Poland and the UK. And I think politically there's a lot of similarities as well. I think there's a certain or at least as it is in Poland now, the political conservatism is similar in some ways. I mean, Poland also has the Catholic nationalist thing, which we don't really have. But I think there's a lot of sort of shared political attitudes. So, yeah, I mean, you tend to get on quite well with Polish people. It's quite different to like Scandinavians or Germans. So I think there's a lot more clash. If personally, I've always bumped heads a lot with people from like Scandinavia and Germany. There is a bit of a difference there with the attitudes. They're much more focused on, I don't know, like rules and compliance with rules, and this being the basis of society. Whereas I think English and Polish people, it's more about like fairness, maybe, and respect, and like we're not so obsessed with rules. Well, in some ways, I think there's bureaucracy. We share we both have quite big bureaucracies in other ways. So
Yeah.
but it's not. We don't have sort of maybe as overbearing bureaucratic stuff in these countries. And then obviously there's a lot of differences with other parts of Europe, like we're not like the French, which is good, and we're not as relaxed as the Spanish or the Italians. Although English people love Spain, they absolutely love, mainly because of the weather. But I think there's a lot of English people who wish they were Spanish.
Yes,
but then they don't
or
try
Portuguese or
or Portuguese,
Portuguese.
but they don't try to speak the language, which is a bit strange. But yeah, so there's always been a bit of a love affair between the the British and the Spanish. But yeah, I think Polish is Poland and the UK. They have a lot of similarities, and of course, recently, before Brexit, a lot of Polish people after the Poland joined the Schengen zone, which was quite a while ago now. What was it, like early
2000,
2000s or
yeah, but you mean the EU?
no, not
Or
the EU, the common migration, because
I think it was 2007.
yeah. So when they could, when Polish people could come to the UK without a visa and work in the UK without a visa. So when this happened, a lot of Polish people came to the UK, um, and I think this was quite a good time actually for the relations, because I think
Yes, some people believe it was the best time.
yeah, well, I think it was pretty good for people in the
Yeah,
UK as well. I mean, you had we because the UK benefited a lot from an influx of workers, because we still don't have enough people to do a lot of jobs in the UK. But yeah, in particular, I think a lot of people came from Poland to do construction, and Polish people had a very good reputation. They still do for their work in construction. It was perceived as being like very high quality and reliable compared to English people in
yeah.
construction who are not generally perceived very well. I would say so. Yeah, it's there's a lot of bonds connections between the UK and Poland. So it's quite easy. It's quite easy to get on with Polish people. Um, the food is very good as well. I think there's a big focus on, mm,
Pork.
well, yeah, which isn't great for me as a vegetarian, but also I guess I think about perogi, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of this sort of food. There's a lot of comfort food. Actually, not so much. I feel like it's interesting with the Polish food, because I would assume that English people would like Polish food a lot. And I think they do. But actually, what hasn't happened so much is, whilst we have a lot of like Polish shops which sell Polish stuff, and also Eastern European, but it hasn't really, like, in terms of like restaurants, we don't have a huge number of like Polish restaurants, and it hasn't penetrated into the dining so much, which is interesting. I always think someone could make a lot of money if they came and set up like a pierogi chain in the UK. I don't know why this hasn't been done. I think it would be very popular, but
yes.
there is a Polish. I mean, there are Polish restaurants. There's one in central Manchester, which we go to, which is quite good. It's pretty expensive, but the food is good. Yeah. But
Um, is there anything you find difficult, besides the language when it comes to Poland, like difficult or you don't like about Poland?
mm, don't know. There's a lot of drinking. Of There's lots of vodka drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get on so well with this. But there's plenty of beer as well. So um, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I think drinking is maybe more acceptable maybe in Poland than the UK in some ways. I don't know. I don't know. I don't actually know what the statistics are, whether alcoholism is worse here or in Poland. I'm not sure. It's not good here. It's certainly not very good here, but yeah, maybe it's a bit more, even worse in Poland. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say now because there are too many, videos on TikTok, so
Oh,
you never
oh,
know what's real, what's not real.
oh, right. Yeah, I mean, both countries could.
Yeah, both countries definitely have some drinking problem.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
for sure.
But
Um,
yeah, I don't know what else. I don't know.
and do you feel any like cultural differences when you visit Poland?
I think there's still more. There is still more. Maybe a bit more emphasis on the family in Poland, and I'm not. Maybe I'm not sure. Like the UK, people are much more. I think UK people are a bit more isolated. Maybe. Um, I wouldn't. But this isn't really a problem for me. It's just an
No, no,
observation.
no, maybe not a problem, but like something you
Yeah,
feel as a cultural difference. Yeah.
yeah. I think there is still a bit more emphasis on the family and the community in Poland, whereas people in the UK have become quite isolated. Um, yeah, in a lot of ways.
Okay.
I don't know if the Catholicism has anything to do with this, but maybe.
I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, let's move to one of my favorite topics, which is Brexit.
Oh yeah, Brexit.
Um, so has like Brexit affected your personal life or your professional life in any way? How do you feel about it?
So it hasn't really affected me personally very much because my partner, had she got settled status, so you know she wasn't really affected by Brexit in that sense. Um, and yeah, it's not really any practically. It doesn't make a big difference in terms of going on holiday or this is all very similar. Um, we have to pay roaming fees now, but they are quite small, so I don't think you could say that's a big problem either. It could have affected me more because I did before Brexit. I did benefit from the European Union because I did a master's in Sweden, which I didn't have to pay any money for, so it was
Okay.
free because they don't, for European Union citizens in Sweden. Maybe it's changed now, but at the time, they didn't have to pay any tuition fees. So I benefited from this because in the UK you do have to pay fees. Well, in England and Scotland are separate, but in England you have to pay fees. So if this was after Brexit, this wouldn't have been possible. So I did benefit from being in the European Union in that sense. Professionally, I mean, yeah, it's a bit harder to say, but I worked when Brexit happened. I was working at a company that actually did quite a lot of work with. We had funding from the European Union, and we did a lot of work with European organizations in other countries, and that organization was affected by Brexit because the funding that they had access to was withdrawn. And there was a period when there was a lot of uncertainty over whether it would be replaced or not. So in the end, we were allowed back into this funding mechanism that they used. So it was, but there was a period when they could not participate. So they sort of probably, you could say they lost money from this. But yeah, part of this is the incompetence of the government in the UK. It wasn't just leaving the European Union, because the way we left could have been different. You know, they could have committed to making up these sorts of differences, but they didn't do this. So I think you have to separate the decision from how it was actually implemented. So just to be clear, I voted against leaving the European Union. However, I would not call myself a supporter of the European Union, and I never was. And this is because I don't think it is very democratic. I think it is an anti-democratic entity that was created for the benefit of corporations, capitalists. And its primary function is to promote trade and the movement of capital resources across borders. But of course, it depends who you speak to. Some people see it in a very different way. You know, it's for them, it's more about the promotion of values and common values and shared values that people have. But I think now you see the problems with this idea, because, you know, there are some countries and populations of countries which don't feel like they have many shared values with the European Union, and they resist its entreaties, and some of them want to leave. And I think there is a question over what the shared values of the European Union and the European project really are, and who it's actually for. Is it for the people of Europe, or is it for the people in power in Europe? And maybe it's both, you know, it's some balance between them. But their interests are not necessarily the same, they're divergent. Now, this is a whole different matter from should the UK leave the European Union. Yeah. So, you know, the problem we had in the UK was that the people who wanted us to leave, the reason they wanted us to leave was because they wanted us to be more like the United States. And they wanted for us to leave, and then they wanted to deregulate our economy, lower standards, lower and undermine employment rights, and enrich themselves and their friends. So they didn't care about the things I care about. They don't care about democracy or anything like this. They just care about you know, getting rich and making money for themselves and their friends. So I didn't support that, and I couldn't have voted for that, because that would have, you know, that would have been worse. And it has been worse. You know, that was worse. But one of the great ironies of all of this now, of course, is that the UK is in some ways now in a better position because of Trump and the US, because we can now act independently of the European Union, because Trump really doesn't like the European Union. Yeah, what did he say? It was set up to screw us. Yeah,
Yes,
that's what he said. Yeah,
yes,
but he
these were
views the
his
UK
words.
very differently. He likes the UK because, for stupid reasons, he likes us because he likes the king and the queen and the monarchy, and probably because he himself wants to be the king of America. So he wants
Maybe
to.
he will be one day. Who knows?
Maybe. But anyway, you know, Brexit. No, we used to call it we talked about the Tory Brexit. Yeah, and at the time, I was against the Tory Brexit. I didn't want a Brexit if it was going to be run by Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings and all these sorts of people, because one, they're doing it for bad reasons. Two, they're going to mess it up anyway, which is what they did. They messed the whole thing up. So
Yeah, but can we say, I always wanted to ask someone this question. Can we say that Boris Johnson got Brexit done?
but the problem is which Brexit did Boris Johnson get done?
Exactly. Yeah.
The thing with Boris Johnson is Boris Johnson, historically, he didn't support Brexit. His support of Brexit was a purely opportunistic thing. So he supported Brexit because it would put him in power and keep him in power. It wasn't because he is not someone with great beliefs or a coherent ideology. All he cares about is having power and being in power. That it was about him. So that who's Brexit? Which Brexit? So I'm sure for him, then he got it done because he didn't have any idea of what he was doing or what he wanted to do. But did what Dominic Cummings or Dominic Grieve or these people, did they get their Brexit? No, I don't think they did, because they wanted like us to be completely free and to deregulate everything, and they wanted liberal sort of capitalists in charge, and they wanted us making free trade deals with everyone, and which didn't happen. It might happen to some extent now, but that's not because of Brexit. We can do it because of Brexit, but it's not happened because of them. It's happened because of Trump.
Yeah.
What about the other Brexits? Well, there's the other Brexit, which we haven't said, which is like the one where it was about controlling the borders, so to speak. This Brexit didn't get done, because what happened was, okay, we stopped people from the European Union coming in here, which I don't think a lot of them were that bothered about, because the European Union isn't really that much different to the UK. But then what happened was we had a big increase in people coming from outside the European Union after Brexit, which wasn't controlled. A lot of it was students or people linked to students or this sort of thing. So all those people who wanted to take back control of our borders or whatever, they didn't get their Brexit either, because lots of other people from other countries started coming into the country. Those people wanted no one to come into the country. They wanted to really limit immigration to sort of very low levels, basically net zero levels. So you'd only let as many people in as UK people who left. That would be the level. This economically, that would be a complete disaster, because we wouldn't have. It has been quite bad because we don't have people to do a lot of jobs now. But they didn't do this because they could, like the Tories knew that they couldn't control immigration in this way, and so they didn't control it in this way, and they kept letting people come in. They just let different people come in. So all these people who wanted this Brexit, they didn't get their Brexit either. So now what's left? We're now here, many years later, and I think the rest of us now have to make sense of Brexit and our position in the world and our new position in the world. the day after the vote happened, I remember I said to my friend, I was like, this isn't going to work. We're just going to end up in the customs union. We'll just end up in it because like we're just not going to make a success of being completely outside of the European Union. It's just not going to happen. And you know what? Finally, in the last month, they started talking about this again. They started talking about the customs union, and it was so inevitable and so predictable, that it would happen. I think it will happen. They can't politically; it's still a bit sensitive, but I think people have started talking about it, and it's. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're in the customs union in 5 years, because the fundamental issue is most of our trade is with Europe. So, and this isn't going to change because it's just a reality of geography. Yeah, we're in Europe. We're next to the continent. But
Yes, of course.
you trade with the countries you're next to. You don't. So, yeah. So in some ways, it was sort of very predictable what would happen because a lot of us understood how useless the government. I don't just mean like the Tories. I mean also the professional civil service and the bureaucracy. A lot of us understand how useless it is and how little capacity it has to actually do anything. I mean, just look at, they tried to build this high-speed train line from London to Birmingham to Manchester. So it's massively delayed, hugely over budget. It's still not in Birmingham. Will it ever get to? Will it ever? They can't even agree if it will go into the middle of London. So, so the capacity of the state in the UK to do anything is so low, that it's really none of this is any surprise because if they were really going to take advantage of being totally independent of the European Union, they would have had this capacity, this ability to do it, but they didn't have that. So this is what a lot of Dominic Cummings stuff is about. This guy Dominic Cummings,
Yeah,
the film with Benedict Cumberbatch he played. So his whole thing is that the British state is highly dysfunctional and it can't do anything, and you have to we have to basically just demolish the whole thing and rebuild it. And yeah, I think there's a lot of sympathy for this idea. It's a shame that with him it's all coupled up with his crazy right-wing political views, but a lot of people in the Labour Party machine, they also say stuff like this. It's a sort of view that's shared across the political spectrum, but it also means that Brexit was unlikely to succeed. So in some ways, all very, very predictable, depressingly predictable. Yeah.
okay. Let's switch to the next topic. So you work in IT and programming, so maybe you can tell me how you got into this field.
I came sideways into software engineering because I didn't really I always used computers. So we had a computer in my house when I was a child, from when I was very young, but I actually wasn't very good in some ways with computers. Like I wasn't actually very good at programming. Like I didn't really get programming until later. But at school, I mainly was focused on mathematics and physics. And so this is what I did at university. And then as time went on, I did more and more stuff with computers. And then eventually I just inevitably sort of moved into IT and software. And partly just because there's so much. This is where all the work is. This is where all the jobs are. Yeah, it's sort of. It isn't really. I wouldn't say it's out of any great love for these things. They're just quite good jobs.
And do you use AI at work?
Yeah. Yeah. Have to be careful what I say, but I think for someone of my age and experience, like when I started, we didn't have any of this stuff at all. So we had to learn things by doing them the hard way, so to speak. So I think this affects now how I use it now, because what I basically use it as a autocomplete. So if you're writing something in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, it would suggest, sometimes it will suggest words or
Yeah.
completions. That's really how I use it for coding. What I don't do is so things that I don't do, which I think younger people do, who basically, they had access to these tools from the beginning of their careers. I don't really get it to make lots of things. So I don't ask it to generate lots of code. And I don't really use it for finding information that much. So I think what I've seen younger people, they use it more as like a search, like you would use a Google search.
Yeah.
But in my experience with this, it's the information it returns is quite unreliable and inaccurate. And I'm also used to using primary documentation. So the stuff I work with, there's typically quite extensive documentation. So I'm much more happier just going and finding information, which will be, and I know this will be accurate then, and it's authoritative. The stuff with the AI, it tends, you can't trust anything that it returns still. I've seen it return things that are just completely wrong. So yeah, you have to be quite careful. But as an autocomplete, it's fine, because it's just doing what you were already thinking about doing anyway. So if it's doing that, it's not a problem, because it's just all it's doing then is making me faster, which is good, because then I can do more stuff. But that's how I personally use it. But I think there is quite a big difference in how you use it depending on where you picked it up during your experience. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's quite interesting how differently people use it.
And there are some speculations that, AI is going to replace programmers.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think there's definitely the potential to replace some programmers. Yeah, if the programming work you do is very is what we might call boilerplate, or so it's very repetitive and it's fairly standard across different projects, then I think, yeah, some of your work is redundant probably, or at least it can be done with less people, because that's the thing, is like there still has to be a programmer, but maybe there can be less programmers. And I think we have seen a bit of this in the job market, actually. The job market for junior roles has just gone. It's really evaporated. It's very, very hard compared to even a few years ago. It's very hard to get for people to get junior roles. And I think AI may be contributing to this a little bit because if it's reducing the number of people that you need across everything, then the first stuff to go will be the stuff at the bottom, the people at the bottom. Whereas the senior programmers, they were more productive anyway. So if they're now even more productive, then so it's like it's already, I think, squeezing the resourcing needs a little bit, but there will be more of this to come. It hasn't finished. I think there is probably also a limit to what it can do because of how it works. They've probably now ingested and indexed like most sources of information, so and built models from it. So, and there is a bit of I've noticed certainly in using it, like it's stopped improving in terms of its ability to do certain things. So I think now the focus will switch more to sort of how it gets implemented into people's workflows, and less on the sort of raw performance in terms of generating or predicting things. But there's still a bit to go on it, definitely. But there is a ceiling. There's definitely a ceiling.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you use AI for learning Polish?
In a limited way, because there's a functionality of Quizlet where you can ask it to ask you questions based on your flashcards. So if you have some flashcards, you can say, ask me questions based on this. So it sort of works for this purpose. It sort of it usually makes sense.
So I'll probably still have a job for the next 3 months.
Yeah, I think so, because it can't. It doesn't have a theory of teaching, does it? Really, it can't. I don't know if it can respond and to people and develop and in that way quite yet. I mean that's the thing, is it's still it's a sort of mimic, right? In some way, I mean, we call it intelligence, but it's also quite a limited form of intelligence. It's sort of mimicry.
Okay. But let's imagine AI was, responsible for getting Brexit done. Do you think it could have done it better?
I mean, it's a low bar. Could it have done better? I mean, I don't know. Potentially, yeah. It wouldn't have looked that much different, probably.
Okay. Okay. I think we can wrap up with this.
Okay.
Nice statement. Thank you very much, Ben, for your time. It was very interesting, and see you in the next one.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.